I'm Jennifer Rock, Senior Manager of Employee Communications at Best Buy, and I do head up the Dialogue team, which is a fairly new team still at Best Buy. And our mission is to help Best Buy be great at communicating with employees, not just at them. And don't get me wrong, communicating at employees absolutely has a place and a purpose. And I admit that when you create dialogue with employees, it can be very messy. It can also be very difficult, especially if you have a large and distributed workforce like Best Buy does. We have about 1,200 stores, multiple brands across multiple countries, and it's about 140,000 employees worldwide. And most of these people have only a few minutes, if that, to pay attention to what you need to communicate with them. But the value of dialogue is so worth the effort. When you invite employees into the conversation, you create highly engaged employees. And you almost always end up with a better result. You will note, in a dialogue toolkit, there are certain types of channels and tools that you can use to have conversation with employees that can serve multiple purposes. It just depends on how you use them and when they use them. And we have one tool that we use across the toolkit for all of these types of dialogue, and that's the poll. And our poll is actually powered by PollStream, and they've allowed us to be pretty flexible and pretty creative with how we use the poll. And I want to go a little deeper into this tool because I think it's a great example of if you choose your dialogue tools and channels carefully and what you deploy in your organization, it can actually be quite flexible for you and create an amazing amount of dialogue that you might have not thought it would at first blush. We get about 5,000 employees a week across the US taking this poll. There's no better way we have to reach our most unreachable employees. These are the folks who are on the sales floor in our stores. These are the people who really have only a few seconds sometimes to pay attention because they're serving customers. Of course, that's what we want them to be doing. This only takes a couple of seconds. And every week, we give them the opportunity to give us their opinion. It's an ongoing discussion tool. It's an ongoing dialogue tool. And they know we're listening on the other end. And that's incredibly important for them. It's also the best way that we have to reach a large cross-section of our employees very, very quickly. Again, we swap this out every single week, and we get an amazing amount of dialogue. I think some people might think that that's where the poll would end, right? I mean, it's a pretty straightforward measurement tool, and sure, you can use it as a feedback loop. It just depends on the questions that you ask. But we have found with one tiny little addition to this tool, this can be a very powerful discussion tool for your employee base. And that little tiny addition is this empty box. When we ask an other question, we ask employees to write in what they'd like to answer there. We get an amazing amount of feedback through this little tiny box. We get stories, we get input, we get ideas, we get complaints, we get wonderful positive examples. And for some employees, especially these hard to reach employees, the ones who are on kiosks instead of computers, the ones who are on the sales floor, who only have a few minutes of time, they use that little box as their direct line into the corporate office to tell us what's on their minds every week. Here's the last example. Listen, plan, target, and discuss. As I said before, that kind of dialogue is really about the timing of the dialogue with your employees. And it's about listening to employees up front, using their insights to craft whatever it is that you're doing, your strategy, your plan, your initiative. At Best Buy, like most of your companies, I'm sure, we rely a lot on innovation to grow our company. And in the last couple of years, we have made kind of a stab at an innovation program for employees. We want employees to surface ideas, to build their ideas within the company. Let us help them get their ideas kind of through this pipeline of what we do at Best Buy, in stores and at corporate. Nothing is stuck. We haven't figured out how to crack that nut for innovation so that employees are giving their ideas and building them with us. We knew there were some underlying issues here, but we couldn't quite figure out how to get at them. And it was the poll that really broke this wide open for us in terms of listening to our employees. We asked, when you have a work-related idea at Best Buy, who do you talk to about it? My coworker, a blog or a message board, my boss, or I don't share my ideas. And for every single one of these answers, we asked why. So you answered one of these things from the poll, and you got one of the little tricky little open-ended boxes, one of those tiny little boxes, and we asked you to please explain why you answered it the way you did. We got 5,000 employees who took this poll, and nearly every single one of them explained why they answered the way they did. And did we get a wealth of information? Good stuff, hard stuff to listen to, hard stuff to admit. But once we did, and once we listened to that, we were able to actually construct a better innovation program for the organization, which started last year. And instead of being based on, hey, give us your ideas, or here's a suggestion box, it's actually based on addressing some of these underlying interpersonal issues that we uncovered from the poll. Things like collaboration, having richer dialogue to create trust with employees. We'll get to the idea and innovation part eventually, but there were underlying issues that we had to deal with, and the poll uncovered them all. And I suppose a more academic presenter might wrap up with something very philosophical, but I just want to leave you with one suggestion based on our experience within Best Buy, and that's just have conversations with your employees, however that works with you. Find ways to do that. Give your employees places to talk, because when you do create more engaged employees. They'll be more informed, they'll be more involved, and eventually be more inspired. And when you listen to your employees, you will always learn things.